Hey guys, Dr. Bodle here, and if you've been following my content, you know how important I think nutrition is when it comes to managing Hashimoto's. Now, of course, diet and nutrition aren't everything, and for some people, it's going to play a bigger role than in others. But no matter who you are, failure to address this aspect of your health is going to severely limit your progress in other areas, and optimizing it for your individual needs will always help to stack the deck in your favor. Now for today, we're not going to talk about specific details of what you should be eating. I have a bunch of other videos on that and you're welcome to check them out. Instead, I want to talk about some of the concepts that I think are important for us to understand when we're approaching our nutrition. And although honestly, this video might not be for everyone, for those of you who need it, I think it's going to provide a lot of context and clarity. That way you can have confidence in the foods that you're choosing. To help you out in these areas, we're going to focus on two main things, which is how strict you need to be with your diet, and also why you shouldn't be fearful of your food choices. Once again, my name is Dr. Bodle, and I release videos every Thursday on the best natural healing strategies to help you out with your Hashimoto's and hypothyroid symptoms. Thanks for joining me today, and welcome back if you've been here before. But if you are enjoying the content, before we get started, please remember to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell. And if this is a topic that hits home for you, don't be afraid to share it with a friend who might be dealing with some of the same challenges. But let's jump right in and start off by talking about how strict we need to be with our diet and nutrition when it comes to Hashimoto's. And a lot of this discussion often revolves around whether or not you need to follow AIP. Now, for those of you who don't know, AIP stands for autoimmune paleo. And it's a nutritional approach that was constructed to remove certain food groups that are more likely to cause gut and immune system inflammation and reactivity. It tends to be a fairly popular approach. Why? Because it's effective. And in fact, the download that I've provided people over the years, and the same one you can find in the description box below, is an autoimmune paleo diet of sorts with some specific modifications. However, although you'll see variants within the AIP framework, all of them are similar in that their goal is to remove these big food triggers. The thing is, because AIP has autoimmune right there in the name, some people with autoimmunity, like Hashimoto's, have been led to believe that they have to follow this particular diet, and that's not always the case. Instead of trying to match things based on the name of our diagnosis and the labeling of certain nutritional approaches, it's better to look at you as an individual. And to do that, we need to ask ourselves, how strict do we need to be? And how strict do we want to be? You've probably heard me say this before, but our nutrition should be viewed as a sliding scale. And it's bracketed on either end by either a more generalized, whole foods, minimally processed diet, and on the other end by more specialty diets, things like AIP or low FODMAP, for example. It's your goal as an individual to figure out where on that sliding scale you fit. And if we only took people with Hashimoto's, even though they all have the same diagnosis, they're going to find themselves at different parts on that scale. And that's totally fine and totally expected. But I think it's really important that you understand that it is less about that diagnosis and more about your health history, your function, the severity of your symptoms, and the mechanism behind those symptoms. So that brings us back again to what does our body need and what do we want? And the reason both of these are important is because both play a role in our health, but they don't always agree with one another. For example, you might want to have ice cream all the time. And as much as you enjoy that and it's something that tastes really good, it might not be what your body needs. And as much as you want to have it, even though you have the desire for it, it can still cause a negative reaction with your physiology. And of course, it's okay to want things. We just have to be real about the effects that it has on us. But in a more clinical and real-world application, although maybe wanting ice cream all the time is a real-world application for you, not sure. The reason why wanting is so important for our nutritional approach is because it comes down to consistency. And if we don't want to follow a certain approach or we don't have purpose in following that approach, then it's going to be very difficult for you to follow that long term, and it's that consistency that allows us to see improvements and change. So maybe AIP is the most amazing, spectacular diet for your body and for your needs, but not if you don't want it to be. And in the end, the only diet that matters is the one that you can follow. And choosing a diet because you've been told it's the one you should follow, even though it's one that doesn't feel good to you, doesn't make a lot of sense if, again, it's something that you can't be consistent with. However, here's where what our body needs starts to butt in a little bit. As I just said, what we want doesn't always jive with our physiology. We might not want to exercise. We might not want to go to bed on time. And we might not want to eat certain things. But as much as we might not want to do something, sometimes our body doesn't care. And over time, that's going to lead to breakdown. So in these scenarios, we need to listen to what our body is telling us. And if you're reacting to 10 or more foods, and those symptoms are very significant and severe, then you're likely going to need to respond with a more aggressive approach, even if you don't necessarily want to. And remember, when we're talking severity, we're looking for symptoms that are more systemic in nature. Sure, some people are going to react to certain foods by having bloating, reflux, digestive discomfort, and changes in bowel movements. But once those food and therefore immune reactions start to affect our whole body, causing symptoms like increased levels of joint and muscle pain, increased levels of fatigue, changes in sleep patterns, headaches and migraines, skin reactions. All of these suggest a more intense and severe reaction from the body, which therefore means we need to provide ourselves with more support and more care. Remember that, in the end, you always can and probably will change your dietary approach based on changes in how you feel and changes in your goals. If where you started has helped you some, but you're still having challenges, you can always tidy things up and be more intentional with your approach. In fact, sometimes this can be a great way to go, especially if you're nervous in the beginning about changing your food choices. By making some small adjustments in the beginning, you can be comfortable with your new habits, learn a little bit about yourself and your daily patterns. Then, once those routines have been established, it can be easier for you to make those further modifications. If you started out with a stricter approach, are doing better, but need to build some flexibility back into your life, then you can move in the opposite direction. Ideally, as you start to relax your strategies, you'll continue to maintain the benefits because your system is more stable and healing has occurred. Neither approach is right or wrong, and it'll depend on you. But the last thing that I want is for you to be overwhelmed by trying to pick the perfect diet for your situation and condition, which then prevents you from making any changes at all. Diet is not something that's rigid, and we have to pick once and stick to until the end of time. It's something that is always changing, always evolving, as you learn, grow, and heal. But with that in mind, let's move on to our second key concept of the day, which is that you can't be fearful of your food, you just need to understand how your body responds. As we just said, there are going to be certain foods that work better with your body than others. And although it can be really frustrating when we have something that makes us feel worse, we need to think of it less as a setback and more as a learning opportunity. It can be tough when there's an increase in inflammation, and sometimes it can feel like we're back at square one. But although inflammation can drive acute symptoms, it doesn't change all the work and the effort that you've put in up until that point. But I get it, and no one wants to feel poorly. But while we're feeling poorly, we might as well use it as an opportunity to learn and help us to navigate things better in the future. When you have a reaction or negative response, catalog what you ate and what the symptoms were like. You might not be able to discern exactly what it is in that moment, but the more data you can collect, the easier it will be. Then, as you start making those small tweaks and adjustments and choosing foods that are more supportive for your physiology, you'll start to feel better. And not only do we like you feeling better, but the key thing here is that it gives us perspective. When you're not feeling well and nothing seems to be working, many of us think, why bother? But once that change starts to occur, due to the consistency of the efforts you're putting in, that gives us a little glimmer of what is possible. I always tell my patients that if we can have you feeling good one day of the week, then why can't we have you feeling good the rest of the time? That one day is the example. It lets us know that it's possible. And by paying attention to the response to your nutrition, it allows us to craft a more supportive environment for you. But as the tide on your symptoms continues to turn, and we're no longer fearing our food, we're just using it as information, then we often run into our second fear we have to overcome, which is, what if I have those foods again? The truth is, there will be some foods that you never tolerate well, but there will be other foods that you'll be able to reintroduce without much problem because your body is more stable and because it's healing. I always look for it with my patients and think it's a good sign of progress if we can, over time, relax our nutritional approach but continue to see improvements. And even for the foods you don't do well with, hopefully the response to those foods becomes less severe. Not always, but hopefully. But if you've reached this point where you've made a ton of positive gains, you're feeling better, and you're looking to adapt your diet to your new goals, realize that you don't need to fear your food. You've put in the hard work, and now the choice is yours. Since you've been tracking, you know exactly what those food reactions look like, and that should be empowering. If you know how food makes you feel, then you can make a choice based on your own priorities and what makes you happiest at that time. Think of something like a birthday party or a holiday with a traditional meal. Now for some people, their priority is going to be feeling the best that they can. And no matter the occasion or the particular food, they might choose to avoid it because their health is their priority. And that's totally fine for them to make that decision. For others, they might say, I know exactly what the consequences are going to be, but my priority is spending time with my family or partaking in tradition. And once again, that's totally valid. And a third group of people might say, hey, I want to participate, but I can switch that cake for a gluten-free cake, and that makes a whole world of difference. I can enjoy my night, and tomorrow, even though I might feel a little bit off, it won't have the same ramifications as if I had the standard cake. So a little bit of blending of both worlds, if you will. But the reason why none of these people should be fearful of their food is because they're in control. They get to opt into these decisions. They get to run their life, and they know what the response is going to be, whether it's good or bad. But hopefully it's pretty easy for you to see that this is a lot different than someone who is struggling with symptoms, can't seem to make improvements, and is therefore more at the whim of whatever's going on in their body and whatever they're responding to, which is really hard for anyone to deal with, and certainly can have the ability to induce a fearful situation. So forget about all the contradictory information that's online, and instead focus on yourself. Pay attention, track how you respond, and take back control. There's definitely more to life than just food, but by doing a little bit of due diligence, you'll empower yourself not only to feel better in the short term, but also feel confident in the long term that you're making decisions that are supportive to your health goals. But I hope that you liked today's information, and obviously I know we all come from different nutritional backgrounds and we're all at different spots in our health journey, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. How do you feel about approaching your nutrition? What helps you to stay consistent? And what's worked for you the best? Let me know in the comments and we can continue the discussion. If you did find today's video to be helpful to you, but you still feel like you need some additional support and guidance when it comes to your nutrition and are interested in working with me one-on-one, then you can always start that process by sending an email to contact@seattlethyroidhelp.com, and from there my staff can get in touch with you and help you to get set up for a free consultation with me. As always, the consultation is no pressure, and we just want to make sure that you're in the right spot for you and that we're a good fit to work together. Of course, if you're not sure about the consultation, I'm a little bit goofy and silly, and just have some preliminary questions, my staff would be happy to help you with those as well. If you'd rather work on some things on your own at home, then you can of course check out any of my other videos or grab my 2 free downloads down in the description box. One of them I mentioned earlier in this video, and it includes the food list that I use with a lot of my autoimmune and Hashimoto's patients, and is a great place to get started when you're trying to make changes. Otherwise, that's the end of today's video. Thank you as always for all the love and support. I hope that you're doing well, and I'm here for you if there's anything that you need. If you could, please remember to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so, and you can also follow me on Instagram or Facebook for daily information and tips. But my name is Dr. Bodle. I hope that you have a great rest of your week, and I will see you in the next one.